over the exercises in the first chapter. All right, so let's take a look at the book that we are providing. Right, this is the reading material that contains all the content that you need to complete all the exercises. It's very hands-on, right? It walks you through a lot of the exercises, tell you exactly what to do, but then it leaves it a little bit open-ended on certain things that you need to complete on your own, right? It's 6 chapters, which match the 6 topics that we're going to be covering. The first 4 deal with user interface, state management, right? Deploying and managing the remote Netlify, right? Configuring and whatnot, right? And then the last couple of chapters deal with implementing your own HTTP server and the integrating with a database, with the Mongo database, right? Now the first chapter, each one of the chapters has a introductory text that introduces the topic. Please read through that, right? It's it covers some of the whys, a little bit of history, right, and some of the theoretical parts, right. And then it quickly jumps into exercises on in this first chapter. Some of the exercises are for setting up the environment, GitHub, doing committing your source code, practicing with HTML, right, and then posting this, committing it to a GitHub repository and deploying it to Netlify, right? So a lot of this we've already covered already, right? We've created the directory, we created the Vit application, we tried it, we ran it, right? And we started creating some of the initial components, the lab1 component, right? The labs components, right? And then bring that over to the app.tsx, the root component. So we've done a lot of these, right? So this hands holds you at the very beginning. There's a lot of hand holding to tell you exactly what to do, but as it progresses, right, it starts letting you go on your own, right? Where it says, okay, well, I've shown you how to do this. Now do this on your own, right? It talks about inspecting, so you can see the page source, but then also the DOM, right? And then, it goes through several exercises, how to do the, headings and then paragraphs, then lists, okay? So go through this. Also tables. So tables allow you to, create rows and columns, right? Images allow you to show, graphical representations of images, JPEGs, PNGs, and things like that, right? Again, this is all meant for you to practice some really, really trivial, simple HTML, get your feet wet, right? Web forms, right? So we'll come back to this. I do want to work on some of these here with you, but I do want to let you know that that at the end, after asking you to have practice a lot of these exercises, right? We ask you to implement Kambaz, right? So this is an ongoing project, right? That we are going to implement from scratch all the way to completion at the end of the semester. So this is a project that spans all the assignments, right? That you're going to have a chance to work in it progressively throughout the various assignments, right? All assignments have at the beginning several lab exercises that give you the chance to practice a skill, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? Servers, databases, and then the second half of every chapter asks you to apply those skills, but for implementing an actual application. So what is Kambaz? So Kambaz is Canvas. This is what we're going to be building. We're going to be building Canvas, right? At first, we're going to create a very crude prototype in this first exercise, right? We're going to create a navigation sidebar here. Then we're going to create another navigation sidebar over there. We're going to create some modules, right? Some buttons, right? Some buttons on the right-hand side, right? Also the dashboard, right? That's going to allow us to navigate between multiple courses. We're going to create an account that's going to allow us to sign in, right? And then go to our profile, right? And edit our profile. So we're going to create a prototype that is going to give us a chance to practice, right? Using forms, and now none of this is actually going to work, right? Not until we get to JavaScript are we going to be able to actually change profiles and things like that. Right now, it's just going to be all static, right? And we're going to be practicing how to implement navigation, right? Of clicking and then navigating to the dashboard, and then clicking and navigating to the course, right? Up to this point, when we get to the dashboard, clicking on any of these cards will always go to the same course, right? Because we don't have data structures, right? We don't have data, right? So we only have hard-coded static content, right? That we can't dynamically generate this content. So it's always the same content. But as we progress throughout the semester, we're going to introduce JavaScript and databases and servers, right? That are going to allow us to click on modules, right? And it's going to pop up a place where we can type in the name of a module, and then we're going to say save. It'll add the module, and then it'll display the module at the bottom, right? And then we can delete the module. We can rename a module, right? So all that we're able to do, and what the assignments do mostly is that they'll show you how to implement parts of the Kambaz. So for instance, we'll show you how to implement modules, the home. We'll show you how to, and then once we have shown you how to do that, we'll ask you on your own to implement the assignments, right? So we'll teach you how to be able to add modules, delete modules, edit modules, and then having you show you how to do that, we'll ask you that on your own from scratch, right? Implement assignments where you can add assignments, delete assignments, edit an assignment, right? We can navigate to an assignment and then edit the assignments. So that you're going to do that on your own, right? Where you have a form, right? And you can select the points and the checkboxes and drop downs and date pickers, right? So that is a challenge that you're going to be working on your own. Now, we're going to give you a starting code for the assignments. You're welcome to use it or ignore it, right? So you can truly try to do it on your own from scratch, no help whatsoever. But if you get frustrated, we do give you some code, right, to get you started. Just be careful that, right, if you if you go the route where you use the code that we give you, then you are you're kind of like choosing a particular path, right, in your learning experience, where typically if in later chapters we'll ask you to do more things, and those things that you do are assuming that you have done prior things with the code that we give you. Now, if you're doing it really on your own, then yes, you can, as long as it functions the way we described, you can implement it any way you want, right? The assignments, right? Well, actually, anything in the Kambaz, you're kind of free to do whatever you want, as long as it behaves as described and it looks the way it's shown. Then you're pretty much free to implement it any way you want. We give you source code, but feel free to ignore it. Okay. So that's in general the assignments. Okay, so let's go back to the exercises that practice on the forms. Let's talk about the forms.